So we're going to learn a piece from Parshas Kedoshim. There's a really nice commentary with the Ramban over here that really speaks to me. I get excited about. So I thought it would be really nice if we learn it together and see where it takes us, see where the conversation goes. Okay? So we'll jump into the Psukim. We'll discuss ideas, just what we think the Psukim are telling us and things like that. We'll maybe raise some questions and some general information of how we can approach learning the Psukim, the Torah in general. And then we'll see the Ramban. Okay, so this is Perek Yutes, Pasuk Yud Zayin. So the pasuk says, "Leisisna es achicha b'levavecha." You should not hate your brother in your heart.
Where you start? You're starting from Yud Zayin?
Yes.
Okay.
So leisisna es achicha b'levavecha. Do not hate. You should not hate your brother in your heart. So that seems like one mitzvah or one chiyuv, we might say, a negative commandment. Do not hate somebody. Then haycheach techiach es hamisecha, which would usually be translated as you should surely rebuke your fellow man from your nation. Okay? V'leisisa alav chet. And you should not carry on behalf of him any sin. Okay, so that's the first pasuk.
Okay.
Now, even over there, it seems like those are...
What's lo sisa mean?
Like to carry something. So you...
Tisa is carry?
Well, the tough is you future tense.
Okay.
The word sa would be to carry something.
So it's saying you shouldn't carry.
Yeah, in order that you don't carry on behalf of him any sort of sin.
Okay.
So obviously we could see a couple of questions. I'll start with the questions. You obviously can tell me if you have any points or thoughts. So the two different parts of the pasuk seem to be two separate ideas, right? Don't hate somebody is one. And then the second one is rebuke him. And rebuke, usually when we talk about rebuke in halacha, that would mean you see someone doing something wrong, let's say breaking Shabbos, and maybe he doesn't know the halacha. So because all of Yisrael are Arevim Lazelazeh, they're all guarantors one for another, they have to get each other's back, basically. You should tell him, you don't know what you're doing. Let me point out to you that that's not what you're supposed to do, so that so the other person refrains from it.
Okay.
So those two things seem to have no relationship with each other. Two separate obligations on a person.
Why don't you think they have anything to do with each other?
I'm going to be Jewish now and ask you, why do you think they have what to do with each other?
Well, when I see es achicha bilvavecha, there's a sense of, like you said, there's a sense of love, and I don't know if one could look at rebuking. Like, I feel like you can rebuke someone in a couple different ways. Mm-hmm. So you can rebuke someone in a positive manner that's not coming from a place of I guess anger or personal judgment. But like if someone really pisses you off and you want to give them chinuch, you could lash out and be like, "Why'd you do that?" Blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So I think there's
So what would be so what's the correlation in your mind?
I think that you would have to try to figure out how to give tochacha with love in your heart.
Why? I still don't see. Why does that follow?
Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm just
connecting. Meaning you're connecting them in the sense that, oh, well, the pasuk talked about hatred, and by the way, here's something also where you shouldn't have any hatred towards the guy when you're doing the act of rebuke.
Correct.
Okay, I like that. Okay, but that would be a connection more based on, like, it happens to be we're talking about hatred, and therefore let's put this next to it because that idea of not hating him could be relevant to, over here as well. Okay.
Yeah, but like I could.
No, I hear that. I think.
Well, no, because if I hate something that you do that annoys me, right, and I try to give you tochacha on that, is that really giving you a proper tochacha, or
Again,
am I
that's
just
why-
trying to change you because it's annoying me rather than I've
So
seen
let me,
you do something?
So I explain this pasuk the way Chazal would see it, the way they would bring it down in the halacha, or the you would find it in the Gemara, that it's specifically talking about when you see someone not necessarily related to you, you see someone doing something wrong against the Torah.
Okay.
To that is, I mean, you're just bringing up that it could. You're bringing up how it's related to you. I'm just saying this is the way they speak.
Well, I am a narcissist, obviously, so it's all about me.
Okay. I get really it's not it's a little bit not fair. What you're saying has a good point to it, which we will touch upon in the Ramban when we get to it. I'm coming from really we don't know what the pasuk is talking about. It's opened.
Okay.
Right? I'm coming from the fact that I know from prior knowledge that we're talking about over here that we have a chiyuv if I see you doing the wrong thing. Let's say I see you climbing up a tree on Shabbos.
Right.
Now, you might not know the halacha that, hey, you're not allowed to climb up a tree. So I say, hey, wait, Eli, you might not know this, but don't do that.
But isn't there a whole thing about not telling someone a halacha that they don't know because then they're chiyuv to it?
There is an idea. This is a separate topic. But
Yeah.
There is an idea that sometimes you have to know when it applies. Sometimes you don't tell someone. I mean, usually it's because you know they're not going to keep it anyways. That better for them to be, kind of like a mistake by them or unlearned, and therefore they do it, rather than know it and intentionally do it anyways. That way, it's a lesser sin. But obviously, if the pasuk is telling us we have to rebuke someone, we have to rebuke them. There has to be some instance where we are meant to rebuke them, correct? Okay, so and then obviously we have to understand what does it mean that you have to rebuke him in order that you don't have some sort of sin on you on behalf of that.
You have to rebuke. Is that the velo sisa alav chet? Oh, so that in order that you don't carry the chet.
And you should not, yeah.
Huh.
So again, I'm going to go with the and I think this is the understanding that most people have because they hear this idea that there is an obligation of rebuke one Jew to another, that this means that if you don't rebuke him, so you're kind of held accountable as well because you have to watch out for him, being that Klal Yisrael are all one unit and everything we do doesn't only affect, I could do what I want, but, what do you care what I do? The Medrash over here, I think, even gives a mashal to an idea of a bunch of people are on a boat, and one guy starts drilling a hole in the boat, and everyone says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm drilling a hole on my side of the boat." And I say, "But you're going to make us all drown." He says, "Excuse me, this is my part of the boat. I'm allowed to do what I want." So the problem with that is it's not exactly true. We're not just a nation. We don't just come together as a nation only because we happen to have the same laws, or because of the halachic idea of that if your mother is Jewish, then you're Jewish, so then we're all connected. It's not that we just have some random connection, that we have some status of being a Jew based on some halachic premise that if your mother's Jewish, then you're Jewish, so you have a name of Jew and I have a name of Jew, and then so therefore we happen to be called the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation intrinsically is one. We are called the children of Hashem, so we are all under this umbrella of the children of Hashem. We all follow his we're all meant to follow his ideology, and we all together are meant to bring the will of Hashem to fruition through that. And in higher realms, we are connected through our neshamas. So it's not just I'm affecting myself, stay out of it, but rather it's like when you do something, it's like my left arm punching my right arm. Because we're connected on some higher realm, so you are actually
everything that I
me.
do affects you.
Yeah, we affect each other. So that would be Tisa alav chet, is that do not bear any chet because of him. One, just from the aspect of because of you, on account of you, he's going to end up doing that chet, and you could have prevented it. And that chet could also be applicable to you because you are connected to him. So therefore, it's a really good idea to give him some tocha, meaning give him the information he needs to not do the wrong thing. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Would you connect lo sisna also with velo sisa? alav chet? That if you took out the hocheach
In what
tochicha
way?
es amisecha,
In what way?
well, I don't know if this is just looking too deep into it, but
Okay.
tisna is tisa without the nun. And that, do you come on some sort, do you carry some sort of a hate if you do hate your brother?
I mean, yeah, there is a hate of the pasuk is telling us not to hate somebody else. There is a
right. So just like you could just connect just like you could connect the lo sisa alav hate to hocheach tochicha
yeah,
es.
that is correct. You could say, well, you could say, don't hate your brother because that will be a hate, as well as give him rebuke because that will bear hate on you. The only reason I would say it's unnecessary is because leisisna itself is already a negative commandment. I mean, do not hate somebody. So we already understand you're not meant to do it, and if you do it, there will be a hate. Hechech is a positive commandment to give him rebuke.
Wait.
Right? So it wouldn't have to say, I mean, it doesn't say in the Torah, don't eat these animals that are not kosher to you because it will be a hate to you. I mean, that's
right,
pretty,
because it already has don't do it. You already know
Yeah.
that there's
Yeah.
the law.
The chiddush here that you wouldn't know is that if you don't rebuke him, you have a hate on that as well. That you wouldn't have thought.
Why wouldn't you have thought that?
Why? Because you didn't do it.
Because it's not.
It's his thing.
You would say, yeah, it's not. You could say like it's not my problem.
Yeah, it's not my problem. He did it. It's his problem. Okay, so that's the first pasuk. The next pasuk then says leisikom v'leisitar. So, do not. The way people would translate these words is do not take revenge and do not bear a grudge.
Sikom would be revenge.
Yeah. Again, the Hebrew word for revenge would be nakama.
Okay.
So from the same root of come to establish something or stand it up a certain way.
Okay.
Which again,
okay.
so the idea of revenge here would be the example Chazal give, and Rashi brings it on the spot over here, is, I come to you one day and I say, hey, can you lend me I don't know, a pot? And you say no. I say, okay.
That's exactly how I would say it too. No.
And then you come to me the next day and you say, can I borrow your shaver? And I say, you didn't lend me your pot, and I'm not gonna lend you my shaver. So that's taking revenge because so
because you're doing it out of spite.
I'm doing it out of spite. Yeah. So I'm establishing kind of like this has to be this way. If you're not gonna let me borrow stuff or whatever, then I'm gonna do the same thing to you. That's called nakama. So here's the Torah's commandment where it says don't take revenge. Siter is a little bit different. It's don't bear a grudge, meaning, so you come to me, can I borrow whatever item it is? I say to you, no. Then I come to you and you say, yeah, you could borrow my thing. I'm not like you that didn't lend me your thing, And I'm like, oh. So you're willing to act upon, even though you have maybe negative feelings towards the fact that I didn't lend something to you, you're willing to go ahead and give it to me. But
not really, though.
You give it to me,
I
but
give it
that
to you,
means but it's still there.
Right, I'm giving it to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have a willingness to give it to you.
Well, you gave it to me. You had the free choice not to. So that means
no, for sure. But the grudge.
You're like, I don't really mind giving it to you. I just want to point out that I feel a little bit sour about it. So that's more like the word sitor more comes from like a word of guarding. So like you're guarding it inside of you. You're holding it against me. So that's bearing a grudge. As b'nei amecha. So again, do not take revenge, nor should you bear a grudge against the children of your nation. V'ahavta l'reacha kamaycha. So this is a famous pasuk. You shall love your fellow as yourself. Ani Hashem. I am Hashem.
Why does it have to tell us this again?
We'll say what again?
It's v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, but before that on Yud Zayin it says lo sisa es achicha lo sisna es achicha b'lev.
Yeah, lo sisna es achicha.
Well,
one is
one's a lav and one's a positive.
Yes.
So, just because you don't have hatred for your brother doesn't necessarily mean you love him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Put it together.
There's also, we're not going to fully touch on this. I'm not 100% sure of all the differences, but just to point out, it's interesting to note. So these two psukim again, at face value, they seem to be related, but not completely connected. Meaning, don't have hatred, rebuke. That seems kind of like stuck in there in the middle. It could have just easily been put at the beginning or the end or whatever. Don't bear a grudge. So that is kind of in line with how you have your relationships with people should look like this, that you shouldn't take any revenge. And then you should love your fellow. By the way, I just want to make a point. I just reminded myself that, the Mesilas Yesharim, the Ramchal, when he talks about this love of not taking revenge, he says it's very hard for people. It's sweeter than honey to take revenge. It's kind of like sometimes you have to ask, you're like, why do we like taking revenge? But he says it's sweeter than honey. It's almost like against a human nature to not take revenge. And the Torah
I feel like taking revenge is almost like taking your will back.
Because I feel I'm in control.
Yeah, because you're only taking. I think someone takes revenge when they feel that a control was taken from them in a very negative way.
Yeah, that could be.
So it's like, it's sweet because I have the ability to take back my control and put you under my thumb as well.
Okay, so if you look at, again, so they are all, I'm not saying I don't see any connection at all. No, I do see a connection between them. But it's a little bit, is there any like stronger actual flow to these ideas? And again, the idea of teichecha is kind of just stuck in there. It doesn't really work. It doesn't seem like it really hits the point. So
you don't think it belongs within this?
Yeah, if you're asking me how I would have wanted it written, so then yeah, I would rather, if you want to call it, nobody. For learning purposes, I would say that I would put that somewhere else just to have it flow nicer.
Right here.
And maybe put it, if you like this grouping of psukim, of hatred and whatever, and for some reason you see teicha, like kind of like what you said, that it shouldn't be done with hatred, you want to be connected to hatred. I don't know, put it before. I kind of like leisisna, and then leisikom, like don't hate him, don't take revenge. Those are like very related. To put that together, and then v'ahavta, the mitzvah of loving, is kind of a natural progression once you come out of that hatred. Our discussion, we're not going to get so much into what is the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. I mean, I could raise the question. I could tell you if you want. The question that is asked on v'ahavta l'recha kamocha is, if you take it literal, it sounds impossible to love someone as much as you love yourself. How could the Torah command that? What does the Torah actually mean when it says love someone else as yourself? To what degree? How much? What's possible to expect of people? Just to finish off my last question, because I think we got sidetracked. Just notice that the words of how we're describing the other person in the in these psukim changes, right? So first we have don't hate your brother, okay, and then we have rebuke your fellow man, from the person from your nation, and then we have don't take revenge against the children of your nation, and then v'ahavta l'reacha. So rea means some sort of friend, but it's not achicha, it's not amecha. Reacha is your friend. It does shift. It keeps on changing the word. And you would think if the subject in these psukim, right? We already have a subject, your brother, another Jew. So then say maybe you have to mention it, but give him teichecha, and we're on the subject of your brother. So continue. Leisikam leisiter, don't take revenge. V'ahavta, you do have to say v'ahavta oisai, and you should love him. But we know who the subject is already, so you could just say him, kamaycha, like yourself. But we keep on kind of saying
switching
new words.
The relationship. We're switching the relationship.
Yeah. Okay, so says the Ramban.
Is that what you're asking that the Ramban answers?
This point the Ramban does not discuss. The other point of the relationship of the psukim is what he's going to touch upon. Okay. So we're looking at the Ramban. It's the second column of the Ramban where you see Yudzayin Yeches Leisisna Sachil B'Vavecha.
Okay.
So he says, "Ba'avor shederech hasaynim lechazes esenasim," because it is the way of haters to hide their hatred in their hearts. K'maisha Amar, like the pasuk says in Mishlei, "Bisvasav yinaker sona." The hater with his lips will estrange himself, kind of make himself a stranger to his hatred as if he doesn't hate you, right? He'll pretend like he likes you. So outwardly, the hater is going to say, how you doing? It's so nice to see you. I hate you, your guts, right? On his face and his expressions to you might look like he's okay with you. Right. But in his heart, he actually hates you. And that he's saying is a normal thing that we find out there in the world. So therefore he says, Hizkir hakasav b'haiva. The pasuk mentioned it in just what's the norm. Okay? Mm-hmm. So just to bring out the point a little bit, the Ramban many times doesn't necessarily ask a question and give an answer. But if he's commenting on something, that means something is bothering him usually.
Okay.
And he feels the need to explain it.
So what was bothering him about?
Oh, that's what I'm asking you. Okay.
Oh, that's what you were going to ask me?
No, yeah, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
Right. So there must have been something bothering him that he has to say, since this is the way of people, therefore it mentioned it the way it did. Right?
Okay.
So you might ask, just say, don't hate people. Do not have hatred towards your brother. Why does the Torah bother mentioning in your heart? So the Ramban is coming to answer that. The Ramban is coming to say why the pasuk mentioned it the way it did. Because a lot of people out there, the way they'll have their hatred is they'll keep it inside. But they'll make sure to pretend as if they like you. The pasuk specifically mentioned, don't even have that hatred.
Oh, it's not telling me that if I hate you, I shouldn't greet you? I shouldn't be fake to you?
One more time, say that.
That if I do not like you, if I do have hatred for you in my heart, mm-hmm. should I not even come greet you?
What would be better?
Yeah.
Okay. So first the pasuk is telling us you have to get rid of the hatred. Right? So that's the first chiyuv. Now, you're just raising the point. What should I do if I have the hatred? What would be better? Should I fake it? Or should I just stay away from you? The pasuk here I don't think is discussing that. And first of all, it would depend, I think. I think, again, it's giving us a chiyuv to work out that hatred, get rid of it. But in the meantime, so first of all, it depends on the relationship. If it's someone obviously you can't get rid of, you have to interact with them constantly. You don't really have a choice in the matter. So I wouldn't say fake it. It depends what kind of faking you're doing. In this pasuk in Mishlei that he's quoting, the pasuk is clearly telling us that the way of the hater is that he kind of specifically pretends like he doesn't hate you, but in his heart he keeps that. So I would say if someone's going around about the goal, the objective is as long as he doesn't know, that's fine.
Right.
That's not what the Torah wants from us.
Okay.
The Torah wants more. It wants us to get rid of that hatred. Right? But I would say
is that because I feel like, is that polite? Is it polite to be like,
I don't like it so much.
Yeah.
Just be real with me,
Tell us
how do you feel about me?
I really,
right?
Really...
I'd rather that than tell, oh, it's so nice to see you. Oh, I wish you wouldn't come around here anymore.
Yeah, I hear.
But I think there is a middle ground. Meaning we could talk about the time when the person gets to a place where he doesn't have the hatred anymore. And there's the faker who's like, this is perfectly good. I want to hate him, kind of, and I'm just going to hide it.
Right.
Then there's the middle ground. What if in his heart he knows it's the wrong thing? And he's actively thinking of ways to make it better, or what we'll talk about. And in the meantime, how should he try to approach it? Chazal talk in many places about someone whose inside is not like his outside. Meaning the way I am inwardly, what I think about, what I want, is not the way I act, is not a obviously not complete person, but it's also it's a chisaron. There's a lacking in such a person that he doesn't act according to the ways of his heart, or more problematic is that um, he acts outwardly as a good person,
Right.
but inwardly he's like a terrible, rotting person. So that's obviously seen as a bad thing. Our work that we do in what Hashem wants us to do is not just to, fake it till you make. Well, just fake it. Pretend like you're good people, interact with people good, go through the actions of the Torah.
Right. The idea is, how do you actually become better?
You have to change your internals.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to change.
Yeah.
So I would say that
Because if you're faking something, you're not becoming better.
you're not changing yourself.
No.
Right. So I would say that if someone's faking it, but he wants to stay in that place, that's what's bad. But if he's faking it, kind of knowing that he's working on it, but he doesn't want to make this guy feel worse than it already is, that's a good medium in the meantime while he's working on how to get rid of this hatred.
Because there's intention of getting rid of it.
Exactly. So the end of this pasuk, just to bring out the point that we're saying, so it says, we've been using the word hatred. I actually hate the word hatred for the word sona possibly, but we should speak about that in a moment. But so the lips of the hater acts he estranges himself, so to speak, from his hatred. Right, that was the beginning of the pasuk we saw in the Ramban.
Say that again.
The lips of the hater,
is
strange himself.
Meaning, estranges himself.
Meaning he makes himself as if he's a stranger to his hatred with his lips. So he speaks in a way that, I don't hate you. What are you talking about?
Oh, so it's like he tries to distance himself?
No, it's that inside there is the hatred there.
Right.
And that's the next part of the pasuk. And inside there is the hatred, but with his lips he tries to make it an act as if he doesn't have the hatred. So really he's a hater. Really he's a soneh. But he acts as if he's not. So he uses his lips meaning as ways of expression, as talking to the guy, saying nice things to him. He makes it seem as if he's I'm good with you, we're buds, no problem.
Why don't you like the word soneh?
Oh, well, let me just finish the pasuk. Uvekir ba yashas mirma, and inside of himself, he actually places trickery, deceit. So the pasuk is specifically talking about someone who, I hate your guts. I'm going to pretend like I don't, but inside, I can't stand you. Right? I'm deceiving you by what I'm doing. So again, the guy deceiving you. So the guy we're speaking about, he wants to grow. This guy's like, I don't care about you. I just want to make by in life. So like I'm happy to make you feel like I'm good with you. But a person who really does want to make it work, so then that's great. I think to try to act nice to the guy, if you want to call it, to try to make him feel good because that you do want a good relationship with him. I think that's a good thing. It's a good medium in between getting to the place where you actually are okay with him and the hating of him.
So here's my question. The Torah writes out what we want to try to get to change or not to do, or certain things like this, like as we're speaking. But where does it tell you how to do it?
The Torah,
because it's great to.
So we
great
can finish the Ramban and then we
okay.
The Torah doesn't always tell you what to do. First of all, it doesn't make sense. If the Torah told you how to do everything, first of all, it would have to write a book for each individual. Not every individual is the same, and it would be the size of who knows what if it did that. Sometimes people ask me,
but is there no? I apologize for interrupting, but like the Ramchal, right? He has Mesilas Yesharim. He in Derech Hashem. Let's talk about Derech Hashem. He has like a pretty structured way of walking the path of the Rosh Hashanah.
In Derech Hashem, he's setting you up for the foundations of what it is. Even he says in his Hakdama, the introduction to his Sefer, that I'm giving you these foundations so that, let's say, just to use what the language he uses, so that when you learn the Torah, you understand more things. I mean, he's not telling you what everything says in the Torah based on what he's giving you in Derech Hashem. He's laying down foundations, and then you go learn, and using those foundations, you see more. And in Mesilas Yesharim, he's giving you a framework to which to work on yourself as a person with. But he's not telling this is how you work on yourself exactly with these exact actions in these exact ways. Because in the end of the Sefer, he says, these are the basic guidelines, but I can't write a book for every single person. Every single person, how he's going to become a pious person is going to look different. Depends if you're working. It depends if you're learning. It depends if you work for yourself. It depends if you work for somebody else. He says it depends on the person. He didn't write a book for you specifically. This is going to work for you. He gave you a framework to which to work in.
I mean, but everyone,
and to develop it for yourself.
So where have I adopted the idea that the Torah, right? If the Torah is teaching for life, why doesn't it give you? Why doesn't it or somebody or a Rav have written out kind of like
they have
write things down and like kind of like step by step on how they would go about it.
So I'd say two things. A lot of people have written. I mean, if we were in a base medrash, I could the thousands of sfarm that are written on every given topic
One
out
day.
there. We'll turn this into a base medrash.
I have
this
ideas.
is a base medrash right now. We are learning here.
For
this
sure.
is our table. First of all, a lot has been written on a lot of topics, of all sorts of topics, bringing from the Torah says, "Don't be like this." A specific pasuk says, whether it's just to bring an example, the Gemara says that anyone who has anger, it's like he worshipped Avodah Zarah. Okay, so it sounds pretty intense. I don't know what that means. So number one, there are lots of people who comment on that Gemara that you can go look at, and then they can describe to you based on that what it's trying to point out to you. And likewise, a lot of people do give guidance within Sfarm or people, guidance to how to go about working on certain things. We have a lot of good Sfarm like that. Sifsei Chaim, Rav Chaim Friedlander, Ali Shor, Rav Volby, people who are alive today who, kind of give shiurim discussing kind of how to work. But to make it like this finite thing that this is the way to do it, doesn't always work. It's hard to write a book and give everything in a very exact way. The Torah is there to show us what the will is of how we're supposed to become and how we're supposed to act. The work of how do you do it sometimes is left to you. Sometimes the Torah does give you more insight to it, as we'll see, but a lot of times the work is left up to you to figure out, because
what works best for you.
Yeah, now I look into myself. What's driving me to be like this? What's causing me to act this way? Or why can't I follow what the Torah wants me to follow? Why is it hard for me? And we do have ideas of, let's say, give back lost objects. And we know that's one example of a mitzvah. And we know that there are a whole bunch of midos, kochos or midos, traits that we're supposed to have, that we're supposed to build into ourselves. And some commentaries say that by only by having the good traits can you really keep the Torah. Meaning, if the Rambam says if I'm a stingy person, I'm not going to want to give back that lost object.
If you only have good traits,
if you work on your midos, you have the good traits that you're supposed to have, which are shown to us throughout different places in Midrashim, Gemaras, and somewhat and Tanakh and Mishlei and other places like that. Sometimes it becomes easier to do
mitzvahs.
So yeah, so for instance,
but someone who has bad traits can still keep mitzvahs.
He can do the action, but a lot of time, not all the time, but a lot of times, I'm not necessarily talking about in general. I'm saying there might be specific mitzvahs which he slips up on. It's too hard for him because of bad traits that he has. So I'll give an example. The one example that comes to mind is the Rambam says that if the Torah says you have to give back a lost object. Now imagine I'm walking down the street.
Sing and do I did. Okay. Yeah.
Only from with you in your beautiful voice. I'm walking down the street and I see some sort of briefcase and it's just sitting there. It doesn't seem like someone left it there intentionally. And I open it and there's $10,000 in there. It's an extreme case, but it does happen that people find large amounts of money. Now, so the halacha would say that it has a siman, it has some sort of recognizable way that the owner could identify that this is his, right? He could tell me what the briefcase looks like and the like and the amount of money that's in there, and I could try to find him. If I'm a generous person and a person of chesed, I say, I know the right thing to do is to give this back, look for its owner, and really try hard. If I'm a really stingy person, I really like money, and I don't care about other people, I say, I want the money, right? You wouldn't want to give it back at that point. So it's not that I could do the action of giving. No, I can't do the action of giving back sometimes. I can't do it. I want the money for myself. So the Torah says, the Torah gives us a general command to work on our midos. There's a general idea of working on ourselves. That is a separate discussion. I think it is relevant in what we're talking about, but separate discussion, which is, the question that's raised, if the Torah is about teaching us what we need to do, why does the Torah start with all the stories of the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and what they did in the Shvatim and Mitzrayim and all that? Start from the mitzvahs. That's the first Rashi in the Chumash, at least who asks the question. And one of the answers that is given is because Derech Eretz Kadmei Torah. First, you have to have the right traits. You have to be a good person, and then comes the Torah. Now, that's not to say if I feel like I don't have good traits, I'm just okay. I'm out. I'm exempt. I don't have to keep the Torah, but it means that it has to be recognized that a precursor to keeping the Torah is having good midos. You do need that. Besides the fact that whatever.
So could you use the excuse of just having bad midos to not keep the Torah?
No, because your job is to work on it.
But you could use the excuse. You
That's
say,
why
I have bad midos, and I don't want to keep the Torah, so I'm just not going to keep the Torah and keep my bad midos.
Well, you have an obligation. I mean, a person. Look at mental health. A person can have terrible mental health, and say, okay, I can either go to therapy and become a better person, a person that maybe people enjoy being around more, or a person that is good to people and the like, or I could just say, well, because of my past, I'm a terrible person, so just everyone has to just deal with me. I think a level-headed, a normal person should say, if he's able to, not always so easy, the right thing for me to do is to go to therapy, to go work on it, work it out, and then be a better person. Yeah, my past holds me down maybe, but I can move forward. So yeah, I have bad things that hold me down from being able to do certain things. I can move forward. I could try harder. I could try to be a better person. I could try to keep the Torah with what the intentions Hashem had. If I work on myself, and it serves a double purpose. Number one, you're able to fulfill your purpose in this world, and number two, the midos themselves, by working on your midos, first of all, as a human being, you're a greater person.
Go on. Sorry, I have a question though.
And number two, the good midos is what makes us more like Hashem. We're emulating Hashem's attributes, his ways. His ways are love, compassion, chesed, and not hatred and jealousy and stinginess. Hashem gives us everything. So,
But is the Torah does the Torah try to have us that takes to keep the Torah, to keep mitzvahs in a certain way, takes like an intense amount of awareness of who one is. It seems as a human, as a human being. So like again, I would come to the question of like, how does even one like I'm sure you have tons of people who read this every year and don't and like just you read it stum and don't have the actual wherewithal to have the awareness that they're not actually.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So, but then my question is, how do you get to at least a minuscule awareness that could help you build on more?
Okay. I want to get to our piece.
Yeah, for sure. But
I want to address this quickly. So the two main thoughts that I would have. Number one, that's why people learn Musar. Musar is not just the idea you learn some book that tells you what you should do and you go and you do it, but it helps a person sometimes, the right kind of Musar and introspection helps a person start becoming aware of himself. Usually it doesn't happen on his own though. You need either or both friends, peers that you could talk to, discuss it with, Hopefully that they're
And see you people who see you from the outside.
you don't always see your own
Right.
stuff. People from the outside, that was in last week's parsha. They say a person can't see his own tsuras, right? A person can't look at his own leprosy. So they say it's a similar. They use it as like a drush. They darshan that the same way a person can't look at his own tsuras and decide it's tameh or whatever, so too a person can't look at his own like blemishes inside of him and recognize them necessarily. They're very hard. We're biased to ourselves, so we don't always see it. So you have a peer, you have someone who's in the same boat as you. He's also working on himself, and he's also becoming aware of himself. And you speak to him, and from an outsider's perspective, he says, "Hey, don't you think you're doing that because of X, Y, Z?" And you're like, "I have to think about that. I hear what you're saying." Or a person has a rav. And he speaks to him, general advice from people with experience in life. And some people need therapy. Some people need someone who's a professional to really bring him to his place where he could make himself aware of himself and recognize these things. But yeah, it's work. Life is work.
Yeah. I'm realizing this.
That's okay. So now, that was a long digression, by the way.
And your
I'm just letting you know.
I know. I was there with
I just want to bring us back. I want to bring us back a little bit. So we're talking about not hating. Now, I did mention that I don't like the word hate. It's hard for me to use a different word. I will explain myself, because it's so ingrained in me that the word sinna means hatred, number one, and as well as, I don't know if I have a nice a word in English that I really appreciate for this.
For sisna?
Yeah, for sinna in general.
Sinna.
So I'll tell you like this. Sinna, at least for me, the connotation of sinna is like a really deep hatred. When you look around in the Chumash sometime, in certain places in the Chumash, or in Chazal, I'll bring one example, it's hard to call it hate. Hate has such a strong connotation. It's hard to say that. So, for example, we have a few halachas that are based on someone who hates somebody else. One is that someone who hates somebody, one who's a sonnet to somebody, is not allowed to testify for him. We don't trust him. And the second is, without getting too much into it, someone kills through negligence, right? Shogeg.
Right.
He goes to Gullus. If he's a soneh, so the halacha is he doesn't go to Gullus because we assume he did it on purpose. Meaning there's already an assumption
that because he was
like trying to set it up that he happens to be on the roof and he happens to be fixing his nails as this guy's standing under there and being like, hey, and his hammer happens to fall off the roof and hit the guy in the head. It's like, okay, buddy, you orchestrated that. We don't trust you.
I do have a question. It may be another sidetrack, unless you can answer it really, really quickly. Is there such thing in Judaism as innocent until proven guilty?
I think so.
Okay.
Ayin Pirkei Avos. Okay, so how do Chazal define what is a soneh in those halachas, being a witness for somebody or whatever? What is a soneh? Anyone who didn't speak to the guy for 3 days. Hold on a second. That's what we call a hater. A hater is. What, you want to say something?
No, go on.
Okay.
I always want to say something.
Okay, you always.
I'm working on my mitos by holding back.
Okay, fine. So we should learn about patience. A hater, I would say, is like, it's not that I just don't. Not only that I don't talk to you, but like, I might do things against you. I talk to you nasty, I don't speak to you for 3 days. Like, okay, obviously we're talking about somebody who you have the ability to speak to and you distance yourself from him, but that's hatred. That's I don't get along with the guy. What's the big deal? I don't get along with him. I don't get along with everybody.
But if you pass somebody regularly and you don't even say hi.
But what is that? So what is that?
It's like an indifference.
Well, okay, so
or in my head, it's an indifference.
So what is that coming from? What is that really? So I think sinna.
Or maybe it's not. An indifference.
I kind of like the
maybe
word.
It's just like a hatred.
That's why I don't like the word hatred.
Yeah.
Sinna, Rav Hirsch says is from the same language as a sneh, a thorn bush, which it causes distance. If love is something that brings people together, then sinna means that it distances people. Now, distance doesn't have to only come because of what, again, the strong connotation of hatred, of like this very intense, I can't stand you. It could just be like, I don't know, there's something about you that I just can't stand, or it bothers me that you have stuff I want. I don't like your kind of jokes, so I just distance myself from you because I just can't handle listening to them. Those are small things. I could talk, you're a great person. I don't want to talk to you. The Torah wants us to go beyond that. Even that is considered hatred. Even just in your heart, that's considered hatred. Just not feeling like you can come a little bit closer to the person. Or, as you said, like, walking by the person and not saying hello, not making him feel good, like you care about him a little bit, or being happy to talk to him for a little bit. That already is an aspect of sinna. That is an aspect of you're distancing the other person from you. And
would indifference be part of sinna? Or is indifference like, I don't care whether I say hi or bye to you? Like, I'll say it, but...
I'm not sure. It would depend on your reasons. If you're lazy, then it's laziness. I don't know. It would depend on the reason, I think.
Like, I don't feel one way about you or another. I don't like you, I don't hate you.
You're neutral.
Indifferent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still sinna? Because I'm making a distance between us?
Well, if we look at it like a spectrum, there's sinna on one extreme of the spectrum, ava on the other extreme of the spectrum, or whatever. The middle is more. It's neutral.
And it seems like anything. It seems like something that creates.
But it could be better.
Right. Right.
So that's the first pasuk we have. Now we're gonna go to the last paragraph. Hanachem be'enai. I'm just skipping the middle one.
Okay.
The middle one, he just discusses what the other part of the pasuk, to rebuke, is more like what we spoke about, that it's talking about if you see someone doing a sin, so you stop him for the reasons we spoke about. Then he says his understanding. Now, again, the Ramban is a commentary that he might bring an idea from Chazal. He might quote Rashi and say it's not wrong. And then he'll also say his own idea, meaning the Torah is not, there's one way to say it, and that's it. So if the pasuk says this is what it means, and that's it. You're able to say, this is how Chazal learn it, this is the halachas that come out of it. So-and-so sees it through his eyes in this way, so-and-so sees it in this way, and I see it this way. You have the ability, as long as you're in line with what the Torah is saying and everything, you have the ability to interpret it in many ways. Okay. So the Ramban says, I told you one way that you can interpret it. He brings unclis, he backs it up, he explains. That's one way. Now I'm going to tell you a way that I understand the psukim. Again, it doesn't have to only be his way, but his way that he understands the psukim, and it's going to bring them together. And another way of understanding this idea of, instead of calling it rebuke, we're going to call it something else. What the idea of tochacha is.
I think I may have lost you. Did you say the Ramban has an explanation of it already, and then comes and says, "But this is how I see it"?
Yeah, he gives one explanation of the rebuke in the pasuk, the way we spoke about it. Now he's going to give another way to understand what is this. I'm just going to call it tochacha because I'm not going to translate it as rebuke.
Can you remind me how we defined it? How we discussed it?
So you see someone doing something wrong against the Torah, let's say, a halacha, not necessarily against you. You're standing at a distance, you see him about to do something wrong, and you tell him, hey buddy, that's the wrong thing to do.
Okay.
So you just inform him of he's not supposed to do it. That was
so now the Ramban's going to come and
there wasn't so much of a connection, maybe. Or there was maybe a loose connection we made, but there wasn't such a strong connection. Now the Ramban comes and says, I have another way of learning the pasuk. More simple understanding. Or it doesn't even have to be more simple, just
different.
A different way of defining the words. What seems correct in my eyes, the word means this word of teichacha, kamai, it's being used as the way we find it in another place, Avram es Avimelech. That Avram was heichiach es Avimelech. So that's the same word. Now what was going on over there is that
who's Avimelech?
Avimelech was the king in Plishtim. Avram dug a bunch of wells.
Okay.
And then
they all dig wells.
And then they got messed up, and Avram basically told Avimelech, "Why'd you do that to me? What's going on? Why'd you let that happen?" So he kind of pointed out the situation to him,
Right.
and they spoke about it. Whatever. It was a discussion. So it's not the rebuke in the way of like you don't realize that what you're doing is wrong. You're doing the wrong thing in terms of the halacha or what you're supposed to do. The law says this. Don't you know that? You're misinformed. He's using it more of like, you've wronged me. I'm going to communicate, I'm going to point out to you. I'm going to communicate.
It's a different type of tochacha.
I mean, it's the same word, but yeah, it's a different,
Right.
it's focusing on maybe something a little bit different. It's not necessarily that you have to be informed about what is done, but rather, I want to point something out to you of what's happening here. Let's take it into our context.
Right, but I would push back and say that if I'm doing that, then I think you should be informed
If I'm doing what?
if you're doing something wrong. Like if you've harmed me, right? You're saying Avram was wrong by
So let's see the Ramban.
Okay.
You're going to see. V'yomer HaKasu, so the pasuk says like this. Now he starts connecting the pieces. Al tisna es achicha b'levavecha. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Why would you hate him? Because he did to you something that wasn't according to your ratzon, according to your will, according to your desires. You didn't like it. You didn't like what he did to you. So now you feel a hatred towards him. So the pasuk says, make sure, don't let that happen. Don't let that hatred take you over. So what should I do? You ask.
What should I do?
So no, you asked already. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. The Ramban says, why'd you do that to me? So it's not like, don't you know when you do that, that's the worst thing in the world. No. You realize you did something to me that it could be either he said something that could hurt your feelings, right? It could be he did something that really bothered you. You have a roommate, let's say, and he comes into the room 12 o'clock at night and you're already sleeping, and he knows you're sleeping, let's say, or actually let's leave that out. He didn't know if he's sleeping, and he turns on the light and he sees you sleeping. Okay, he looks like you're still sleeping. So he goes and he does his business. He rummages around. He makes noise. So the next day you want to bop him over the head. You want to tell him, like, why'd you do that? Don't you have any decency? Aren't you, don't you have any morals? Aren't you why can't you be nicer? Why can't you let me sleep? You could have been a little bit quieter. So you could just like shove it in his face and just be like, you're a terrible person.
you sound like you have experience.
I actually don't. It's just an example I use a lot. I sleep with the lights on, so I'm fine.
Really?
I'm a very heavy sleeper.
Oh, okay.
He can't wake me up.
Challenge accepted. I don't know how
do
to
not
do
come
that.
to
I'm
my
not
house.
going to.
So rather go over to him and say, why did you do this thing to me? Again, you have to approach it from a place of, I'm not trying to attack you. I want to rectify something. I want to rectify. The Torah doesn't want me to hate you, and I can see that as obviously a good thing. I don't want to hate you necessarily. Maybe I don't even know you, but I can see why it's beneficial not to go around hating people. So I want to fix that. So I come over to you and I communicate what I'm feeling, and I say, why do you do that to me? So the Ramban continues to explain. So he's still in the pasuk a little bit. And this way you won't bear any hate against him. What would be the hate here? Is that you're going to hide the hatred in your heart and you're not going to tell him.
Well, this is like we were discussing before.
Yeah. So now the pasuk is one continuous thought. Don't hate him. Why would you hate him? Because maybe he did something wrong to you. Rather, tell him how you're feeling about what happened. That's the teichacha. And that way you won't have this hate of hating him in your heart. So explains the Ramban why. What, at least if it's good, healthy people in this scenario, what will happen? Because by you telling him how you feel, expressing yourself, I say it's not tzalacha. Either he will justify himself to you, or he'll kind of do tshuva, confess that he did the wrong thing, and I don't know if you want to say that will atone for him or that will give him forgiveness.
What was yisnatzalach lecha?
It'll justify.
Justify.
So he's saying one of two things will happen. You'll tell him, why did you do that to me? And either he'll say, You're right. I should. This is the second one of the Ramban. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. You're right. I was wrong. He'll just apologize. He'll realize it was the wrong thing to do, and again, going back to the roommate, he says, again, you don't come from an attacking place, but you say, did you realize I was sleeping? I really didn't appreciate being woken up in the middle of the night. It's hard. Then it's hard for me to fall back asleep or whatever. And the guy realizes, yeah, I was wrong. So he says, I'm sorry for that. Next time I'll try to
Be better.
be more,
Be more aware.
and caring. Or he'll justify meaning like this, that he'll say,
We'll explain to you why he did it. And
he might say,
maybe it wasn't maybe it was unavoidable.
Right. Usually I wouldn't rush into the room, turn on the lights, and start rummaging around. I had to find my ID because I had to run to the ER.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
It's a different kind of apology, or sometimes it's not an apology. Sometimes you hear people talking, and one person thinks the other person is like out to get him.
Right.
And he just misinterprets everything that's happening. So it's not an apology that's needed. It's an explanation. Oh, you just misunderstand me. I'm not trying.
Right. It sounds like the Ramban's correlating the idea of kind of understanding can be a vehicle to extinguish hate that you would have had, because it's just a lack of understanding that's causing the hate.
Mm-hmm. Now, at least in scenarios where it's the hatred is coming out of a place because he did something against you, he did something that was not nice to you.
Right.
He did something
but
that
you're
hurt
hating
you.
it because maybe at that point you're taking it personally.
You took it personally.
Right. You took it personally
And
when it really had nothing to do with you. It wasn't.
You don't know that at that point.
It wasn't a lack of awareness. It wasn't necessarily a lack of awareness of you sleeping, but it was.
You didn't know that there were some other circumstances that
Right.
that were happening. Or whatever. Someone doesn't know something about someone's family life, and he says something. A person Lolino could have a parent that passed away, and he makes a comment about parents, or whatever, and it hurts the other person because he's missing his parent, and he. He tells the guy, I just find it's insensitive to just around me all the time talking like this.
Right.
And then the other person says, I didn't know. I hear what you're saying. Maybe I would take that into account. I would be more sensitive to it. I just didn't know. Right. So it's not, and then the other person.
I've had that similar scenario happen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened. I think it's very common like that. So the Ramban is actually telling you, the pasuk is actually telling you something that I wouldn't say you should, not only you should do it, but the Torah is actually in a way commanding you to do it. This is actually a mitzvah to do this in order that you don't have that hatred by you. So now we have those parts of the psukim connected that don't hate him, right? And then the second part being, so he did something wrong, and I feel like, I really can't stand him anymore. So you have to speak it out with him. And that way, you won't have this hate of the sinner festering inside of you.
Yeah.
Rather, you'll be able to get it out. And then, just continuing the rest of the pasuk, or the psukim, V'achar kein yazer shlei timkom mimenu. Don't take.
Where are you?
V'achar kein.
3 lines up.
4.
I got it.
V'achar kein yazer. The Torah warns you shlei timkom mimenu. Don't take revenge. V'lei titer bilvavcha, and don't bear that as a grudge. Basha asal what he did to you. Ki tachin shlei yisna isai. Maybe you won't hate him. Aval yisker hachet believable, but you'll keep. Oh, but I remember that time that you did that. No. You have to erase the bad thing that was done, that your brother, he says, did, and his sin from your heart. And then after that, then you should love him like yourself. So it's a progression if you think about it, right? You have someone did something wrong to you, and you really.
How does he get to the end?
What do you mean?
He says you love and like yourself.
Well,
for
you
letting
have to
go.
love him like yourself. That's what the pasuk's saying.
Oh, I thought you said the progression was from getting rid of this hate you will love yourself more by getting rid of it.
From getting rid of the...
Which I think it could be true.
You might be okay with yourself.
I think it could be true. But, okay, I just misheard you.
No, that's fine. So, no problem. You explained yourself very nicely.
Thanks.
So the Ramban is pointing out to us that a very necessary thing we could say in a relationship, in human relationships, is that, and in fact, the Torah gives it specific chiyuvim on a person. Number one, the Torah is telling us don't hate. We see a few things. The Torah is telling us not to hate, and not only outwardly, but even inside, you shouldn't have that hatred, right? If you look at, if outside of the Torah, we might say, if you would ask me, I really don't like this guy. What should I do about it? Should I do something about it? So if we're trying to become better people, stam, for the sake of being good people, so the first question I would probably ask you is, well, do you have to see him? Do you have to interact with him? If not, so just stay away from him. It doesn't matter, right? Like just don't just stay. Keep your distance in order that you don't have to. You don't say anything bad to him, maybe, or it doesn't get worse. Just keep it alone. If you have to interact with him, I might tell you. Pretend like you like him. Make him feel okay with him. Make him feel like you're okay with him. But I don't know if I would have ever come that I have to, as a human, I might say my nature is, that's what I would do. My nature is, I would say, okay, I'll pretend like I like you. I'll get along with you. So for the purposes that we have to do, maybe we will work together or whatever it is. But I don't need to erase that. I don't need to get rid of it. I don't need to work on it. I just have to get through life. Outside of the Torah, without the Torah telling me this, without the Torah giving me this obligation, right? I might have said that if it's a person you don't have to interact with, you might, but you don't have to necessarily. So stay away from him. That way it doesn't get worse. You don't say anything not nice to him. Just, keep it very, keep
cordial.
the peace. Keep the peace by staying away. Okay? That might be one thing I would think. If it's someone, let's say you work with, someone that you have to interact with, so I would tell you, okay, make him feel like you don't hate him, which sometimes is pretty hard. If you actually hate the guy inside, to pretend doesn't always, it usually comes out a little. You could feel it. People feel it. But let's say I tell you, fake it. Pretend to him like you're okay with him, you like him. Don't have unnecessary conversation with him because it might bother you more. Just do what you got to do. Work with him. Finish what you got to do. Move on. Stay away from him as much as you could. But, maybe try to go out of your way a little bit to be nice to him so that he feels like you care about him.
Ugh. Apparently, I've had friends who tell me that apparently I'm not good at not showing that I don't like somebody. Not that like I'll like. Maybe I'll be a little bit more snippy, a bit more snippy.
It comes out avoidance. A lot of times.
We're working on it, possibly.
So the Torah is actually taking it a step further, and it's actually telling you, no, what the Torah expects of you. Again, those are normal human traits. I would say a human being on his own might think that way. I think, and I can understand that. Why do I have to rise above that? I have to get through this world in a way that works best for me. So as long as I can make it through this world, and I can interact with the people I have to interact with, and I just stay away from the people that makes me feel uncomfortable or whatever it is. So great, I'm set. I'm good. I'll make it through life. What's the big deal? Hashem expects more of us, though. Hashem wants us to perfect ourselves, perfect our neshamas. Again, these traits don't just affect us as like our interpersonal relationships or ourselves, but it also affects how much we make ourselves like God, and we're perfecting our spiritual selves. So hatred is a trait that Hashem tells us you should not have, even just in your heart. You have to rise above that basic human nature, right? And you got to try to erase it. That doesn't mean in a day's time it's going to be gone. No, it's sometimes hard, and it's sometimes not like the Ramban scenario that the guy did one thing to you and you tell him, by the way, you did this to me, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, and now we're good. It might be a very long relationship of a lot of, pain and things done that you still have to work on it, and it takes a long time sometimes, but it's the process is something that Hashem expects us to go through, and tells us that my will for you is that you should not hate any other Jew. Now, how do you do that? So the first and most basic thing is you have to communicate how you're feeling. You have to tell the guy, when you do this, this is what it makes me feel. I feel very harmed by it. I feel very hurt by it. Whatever that thing is, you have to speak it out. The problem in human relationships is the other person, because you can't tell him how to act.
Right.
But I think it kind of creates this, it kind of layers the chiyuv in a way. Let's say I tell you, the reason I can't stand around being around you so much is because you know how many times you've done, not you, okay? You know how many times you've done XYZ to me?
Right.
Now, okay, I shouldn't say it in an attacking way, because that already makes it you're just going to blow everything up. But even if I try to say it nicely, let's say, I say, it's really hard when you do this. And I think for the future, if we could try to, if you could try to make that work, that it doesn't come out so much, whatever, it would be easier, whatever. And you say, well, you know what you do? Right. So you start, you automatically get defensive.
Because you take it super personally.
Right. So I think now I think I have another chiyuv to be like, to kind of do this teicha, this communicating, and be like, hey, maybe the media is more like a patience, tolerance of okay, he's gonna get upset. I'm just gonna take my time. I hear what you're saying.
But what I'm finding interesting is you hear. I don't know if you've been to therapy. I've been to therapy, and you talk to your therapist. You talk out certain things that bother you about, but does it work the way? Would that work the same way the Ramban saying? Because the Ramban seems to be saying no. Say it to the person.
No, I think those are two different. The reason you might speak it out with a therapist is to help get a handle on how should I approach this, and it's about my feelings right now. How to actually rectify the relationship. You can't rectify the relationship without talking to the person themselves.
Right.
But again,
I feel like
if
you
the guy
get stuck in that place.
That's true. If the guy gets defensive, if the guy starts attacking you back, so it's very hard. Obviously the Ramban is talking about two people in this ideal world. The Ramban is saying that the guy does something wrong to you. You point it out to him. He explains himself, and now everyone's holding hands again, and very happy. But in the case I just said, so he doesn't. The other person might not care to get rid of their hatred towards you or the way they are. They might not be willing to grow. The Ramban is talking to people who want to grow. But let's say both parties in the relationship harmed each other, right? Each one has their stuff, chips on their shoulders. So I say to you do this. So the conversation might turn into, I do that sometimes because you do this sometimes. I'm like, oh, and we both start unloading our feelings about what's going on, and as long as we're both able to not feel personally attacked,
right,
and keep it to the mindset of I want to make this work. I don't want to hate people. Hashem doesn't want me to hate people. I want to be a better person. I want to be a bigger person. The world outside maybe would tell me it's okay if you hate people, just don't be not nice to them outwardly. No, I want to be bigger than that. I want to be greater than that. I want to rise above those almost animalistic nature of human, and say I want to do more than that. I want to try to, as much as I could, get rid of the hatred, possibly completely, and build to a point where I'm able to have a relationship with him where I actually love him, maybe, like the Torah says.
This type of midos work, do you think man has the capability of coming up with this understanding of this is how you're supposed to be without the Torah? This is how you're supposed to...
So that's part of the reason why the way I explained it is I think the fact that we see it in the Torah does two things for us. First of all, I think because naturally people, let's say they like taking revenge. They find it sweet. Or people naturally don't feel any push not to hate someone. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say because I'm not outside of the Torah right now, but I don't know if I never saw the Torah, I never saw this, I never heard of any of this. And I was a person who worked on myself. I was a person who kind of wanted to be a greater person. I don't know if I would say there's a major issue if I don't like him so much in my heart, but outwardly I know how to get around it. I don't know if I would come to that necessarily. The Torah kind of is saying above what human nature is, this is what you're supposed to become. But I think one thing that also it puts it into perspective for us that makes it a little bit different is that this is not just good advice. This is an obligation from Hashem that this is my will and this is what will perfect you as a physical and spiritual being. It puts it on a whole nother realm. Not that necessarily this idea can't come from a human being and be understood, but that it takes the form of Torah, that this is, when you now express yourself to somebody, when they do wrong to you, you are fulfilling his will. You are actually, you're doing a positive thing that Hashem wants you to do. That it puts it on a whole nother level, right? What I mean by that is that I'm not just being a good person, but at this, obviously it is making me a greater person, it is giving me more perfection. But on top of that, I am actually
you're connecting to the
one in line
creator.
with the will of Hashem. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Which, like, we have many mitzvahs. Don't murder. Okay,
so are you saying just because possibly man could come up with this themselves doesn't take away from it? This just adds to the fact that, okay, great, you came up with this yourself, but if you believe that Hashem wrote the Torah, then you have it's on an even greater level.
Yeah, that's number one. And again, because this is one explanation of how to understand these psukim. This is one explanation of how not to hate, let's say. But there could be multiple levels of deeper understandings of why not to hate or why to come to love.
Right. So
that we're not discussing.
Right.
That even if we don't understand those things, when we're doing it, it is taking place. When we're removing hatred from ourselves, or when we're going out of our way to love people like ourselves, and there are deep ideas of why we do that, even if I don't know what they are, that is happening. We're just speaking on a very basic level of, how do we apply this to our lives? How do we see what the Torah is telling us? But it could go further than that, past what we know, and that's happening when we act on these things. Like, just to give an example, it says sinas chinam, because on account of the sinas chinam, baseless hatred, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed.
Yeah.
So even if I can't explain to you why that is, but I do understand that by removing hatred, that gives the possibility of the Beis Hamikdash coming back. That gives the possibility of redemption happening. So I see it has great importance. Again, the Ramban is speaking on a very practical level. We could speak about it on a very practical level. I mean, he's not explaining why you shouldn't have hatred. It just seems obvious. It makes for a much better society. And also, again, just to mention, like we pointed out, that it's achicha. Achicha here is like almost the lowest level of relationship. That you shouldn't hate him just because he's your brother. Meaning, as a Jewish people, you're all part of one family, so to speak. You all come from one father who is Hashem, and you all do have a basic connection, just like a family. A family, you're not connected as a family because you really love each other. That's not where it starts. It started because you were born from the same mother. That's it, right? That's what connects you as family. A friend, you choose. A neighbor, you even choose. You might live in closer proximity to a friend or a neighbor than you do to your siblings. But there is a basic level of connection that brings you together as a family. Again, your siblings could be your friends. They could be your neighbors. I'm not saying they're exclusive, one or the other. But a family is a very basic relationship. And the Jewish people, on a very basic level, they're all one family. They're all your brothers, and therefore you shouldn't have hatred towards them. That's the basic level. Reacha at the end, when it says you shall love your brother, you shall love your fellow, it's going up to a whole nother level. That you should actually try to get to a place where you see him as your closest friend, whoever this person is that we're talking about. You should try to love every Jew on a very.
You should see them as yourself. You should see them as yourself.
Well, I'm just saying the Reacha is how we're describing that relationship. Rea is a higher level relationship.
Then Achicha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, Achicha is just a base level we happen to do with each other. Also, like the word Am that we keep saying, Amisacha, whatever, that's also, it's a nation. It's because we're part of the same nation. Also, still a more basic level. And we're going higher with that as we go. So I learned this, and I see that the Torah puts an obligation on me to try to get rid of hatred, to try not to have hatred towards people. And even if it's unknown to me that what's happening when I then go and try to act this way, to try to banish hatred from myself, how I interact with people, and try to come more to love them, I'm actually bringing about the redemption, even if I don't know it. And if I know it, it might empower me to actually even want to do it, more because it's important to me. But even if not, it is happening. So one thing that makes it Torah is that being that this is the will of Hashem, and being that this does have repercussions in the world in ways that we might not understand, by doing these things, by keeping the halachas and understanding that the Torah, not so many people learn these halachas. No one talks about the halachas of hating somebody, and it's even in your heart. It's talked about, obviously, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's. People learn Hilchas Shabbos, and people learn Hilchas Brachas, and they learn all areas of halacha. But it's also important. These areas of halacha are very important, and so we're learning about them. We're scratching the surface.
But it seems like these would be almost ikar from what we've discussed today. These would almost seem in my mind to be more ikar halachas to learn in order to really be able to keep the Torah.
There is a lot of truth there. There is a lot of what to speak about on that topic. Anyway, so I think that will wrap it up for this.
Shkoyach.
Until the next time.
Shkoyach.